Hey guys, in today's video, once again, we will be talking about the tropics because obviously of Ida. Ida will be, of course, the main story of today's video. We have now Tropical Depression 10 that just formed earlier this morning. It's at 35 miles per hour, 1,007 millibars, and it's moving directly north now at 8 miles per hour. It is forecast to become a tropical storm by tomorrow morning. Pretty much it'll just be a tropical storm tomorrow. But honestly, gotta say, I don't think it will become a tropical storm. I think it'll just be a tropical depression. And what's funny is that, like, second year in a row now as well, Tropical Depression 10, it's not really hasn't ever forecast to be that strong of a system. Just a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm. But yeah, right now I don't think it will become a tropical storm. It's forecast to become a tropical storm, so it's possible for sure, according to the National Hurricane Center. But I don't think it will, to be honest. Now, let's real quick just say Invest 97L has a medium chance of development, 60% chance within the next 2 to 5 days. It's a tropical depression could still form within the next couple of days, but by midweek the storm will be absorbed by a frontal system. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about Ida now. Let's fully talk about Ida. Divert our eyes to Ida. Ida has become a hurricane, and so that's a good bit of change since yesterday. It's a 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. Its pressure is at 984 millibars, and it's moving to the northwest at a pretty decent clip at 16 miles per hour. Now, here is the cone forecast currently from the National Hurricane Center. Hurricane warnings are up for New Orleans, much of southeastern Louisiana, pretty much all of southeastern Louisiana. Of course, tropical storm warnings extend out towards Lake Charles, that area, Cameron, Louisiana. Tropical storm warnings as well for coastal Mississippi and Alabama, including Biloxi, Mobile, and this forecast to become a major hurricane, obviously, quite soon. And it looks like it will make landfall as well as a major hurricane. It's forecast to get to a Category 4 and landfall as a Category 4 around 130 mile per hour winds. That intensity has calmed down a bit since the last advisory. I really don't know why, honestly, because when I show you guys especially how the storm looks right now, you guys will totally understand why I think it should have stayed at 140 miles per hour at landfall. Of course, it still hasn't gone over the loop current, still hasn't really interacted with that truly deep, warm waters and that kind of fuel yet. So we will likely see it become a major hurricane, I would say, by later this afternoon, around 5 p.m. even. And especially as we head into tonight, I definitely think it will be a major hurricane and on its way to really rapidly intensifying. Of course, it will interact with the loop current, with those deep ocean heat content with the loop current by going through tonight. So that we'll see how much that will affect the storm. But it is not out of the cards that the storm will truly rapidly, maybe even explosively intensify when it interacts with the loop current. And then even past the loop current, the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf, especially, of course, the shelf of the Gulf up towards the Louisiana coast where it will make landfall. The sea surface temperatures, 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius. So very, very warm waters that still lie ahead. So the storm has pretty much everything going for it to continue to intensify, potentially rapidly or explosively intensify as we head through the next day. It likely will make landfall towards tomorrow afternoon around, I would say, currently around 3 p.m. or so, 4 p.m. So yeah, today is definitely the last day. Maybe some part of, especially tomorrow morning for you guys in Louisiana, particularly New Orleans, especially for you guys to make sure you have your hurricane plans in place and ready. You guys should already be ready fully for this storm, and of course evacuations. The city of New Orleans, because there's not much time for them to evacuate everyone, they said that they don't have the time to do the mandatory evacuations. They can't do the contraflow because of that. So really, evacuations, it's more that people who live in New Orleans that think they really need to evacuate, definitely evacuate. And we are seeing that on the highways if going out of New Orleans and whatnot with very, very heavy traffic, people evacuating out of the city and going other places to be away from the worst of the storm. So now let's look at rainfall potential. Rainfall potential, New Orleans is now in the rainfall range of between 10 to 15 inches, and that is in the red shading. The pink shading is 15 to 20 inches, so there are potential for spots to exceed 15 inches, even approach 20 inches of rainfall And that obviously will lead to flash flooding. New Orleans, southeastern Louisiana, now under a high risk of flash flooding, 50% chance. And, of course, that will also be added on to with the storm surge amounts. Storm surge amounts currently still at 10 to 15 feet for the immediate southeastern coastline, especially for around where that center may make landfall, as predicted right now. 7 to 11 feet into that bowl of Louisiana to Mississippi coastline. Lake Pontchartrain, just north of New Orleans, 4 to 7 feet of storm surge as well. Lake Maurepas, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. Coastal Mississippi, Alabama, 4 to 7 feet, 2 to 4 feet respectively. And then going towards central to the southwestern coast of Louisiana, 6 to 9 feet into Vermilion Bay, 3 to 5 feet, and then 1 to 3 feet extending all the way to Sabine Pass, right on the border of Louisiana and Texas. So, lots of storm surge. Storm surge flooding is very, very likely, and that is why storm surge warnings are in effect for all of southeastern Louisiana, and all of Mississippi's coastline, as well as storm surge watches for the Alabama coastline, including Mobile Bay and Mobile itself. Now, storm surge inundation. This is very, very key to show you guys. Let's zoom in to the southeastern Louisiana area. Of course, New Orleans has the levee system, but I am very worried with the mix of the potential of very, very heavy rainfall and quite high storm surge amounts that potentially the levee system honestly could fail. So definitely people living in New Orleans, if you can evacuate, please evacuate, because you definitely do not want to stick around to find out if this levee system will fail and how bad the storm potentially could be. Of course, here in many spots, storm surge inundation could be 9 feet plus in these red shadings. Orange shadings is 6 feet plus, yellow shadings 3 feet plus, blue shadings 1 foot plus. Now, of course, Lake Pontchartrain, the northern part of Lake Pontchartrain, the northern shore, 1 foot plus, 3 feet plus, even 6 feet plus in spots, and maybe some isolated spots honestly could reach the potential of 9 feet plus of inundation. So big issues with storm surge flooding. Of course, the immediate coastline, southeastern coastline of New Orleans, potentially around where the center will make landfall, lots of potential storm surge inundation of 9 feet plus, obviously where that 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is forecast. So inundation of storm surge, flooding, rainfall, flooding, obviously huge threat. Wind speed probabilities, tropical storm force wind speed probabilities, 100% guaranteed for southeastern Louisiana, including New Orleans. So that we're definitely going to be seeing strong winds. 50 knot wind speed probabilities, 58 mile per hour wind speed probabilities, pretty much as well, up to maxed out at 90 to 100% chance of that. Hurricane wind speed probabilities. This is now a hurricane, so hurricane wind speed probabilities are much higher at around 70 to 80%, even very coastal southeastern Louisiana spots at around 80 to 90% chance of hurricane force wind speed probabilities. And those hurricane force wind speed probabilities will likely continue to go up to that peak of a 90 to 100% chance as the storm continues to intensify, especially if it really does take that true potential of going over the loop current and really taking advantage of those very warm waters and very deep ocean heat content. The potential is there for it to rapidly intensify, potentially even explosively intensify. The loop current's ocean heat content is in fact 40% higher and warmer, in other terms, than when Katrina went over it back in 2005. That is a huge amount higher than when Katrina went over it. So the potential is extremely and definitely there for it to really take advantage of that loop current and even the very warm sea surface temperatures past the loop current up towards landfall in southeastern Louisiana. So we are going to be tracking this very closely. Arrival times of tropical storm force, earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds. Sunday at around 2 p.m. is when the very southeastern Louisiana will start feeling that, potentially. And then Sunday at around 8, between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., probably around, I would say, 5, 6 a.m. or so, New Orleans will start feeling it. The earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds. And then Sunday by 8 p.m., the earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds will extend all the way into Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. So wind speed, strong wind speeds, tropical storm force at least, will extend very far inland, even way far inland from the shoreline. So this is definitely not just a shoreline coastal event. Really, really want to keep that in mind. Really want to make sure that everyone watching this video, everyone who lives in Louisiana, potentially will be impacted by Ida, does know that, because of course we will likely see lots of flooding and wind damage way farther in from the coastline. A new Air Force reconnaissance aircraft is heading into NORA, so we'll disregard that for now. The Air Force recon is in Ida currently, and they have found it to have strengthened very slightly as of the 11 a.m. advisory, down from 985 millibars to just 984 millibars. So not much strength has changed currently with Ida specifically, but you can see from the look of it, just this picture, Ida is definitely strengthening a good bit. And now let's look at how Ida is looking currently on satellite loop presentation. And you can see tall convective thunderstorms blowing up in and around the center. The eye has really started to clear now, and that is a definite sign of it starting to really try and intensify a good bit more. Likely as we head into the afternoon, especially as we get towards the later afternoon and evening, we will really likely see the storm start to intensify into Category 2 hurricane, potentially even Category 3 hurricane. Definitely by tonight, likely will be a major hurricane, and through tonight into tomorrow is when that time frame is of it's just continuing to intensify and rapidly intensifying more. We are in that crunch time of between now and landfall in southeastern Louisiana. So people who haven't evacuated yet in Louisiana, your time is rapidly closing to evacuate. So the time is starting to get, that time frame is starting to get to that point where you might really just have to hunker down and ride this one out, unfortunately. So hopefully you really have those hurricane plans in place and are truly prepared for the potential of how damaging and destructive this storm could be. Let's look at the forecast models. Now, forecast models have really started to get a much worse handle on the potential intensity of Ida at landfall. So let's look at the GFS model first, and then we'll look at the Euro CMC, and then the actual hurricane models, the HWRF and HMON models. Here's the GFS model. Shows it strengthening down into the 950s and then making landfall in southeast Louisiana. New Orleans, potentially on that, it really looks likely that it'll be on that eastern side of the eye, which of course holds the strongest winds, the strongest push of storm surge, and heaviest rainfall. So definitely looks like New Orleans, you are in for truly a huge doozy of a day tomorrow into even Monday. So definitely flooding, strong winds, huge threat for New Orleans. When the storm makes landfall, definitely. So, New Orleans, truly, I hope you guys in New Orleans are prepared for this. European model. Let's show you the European model. The 12Z run hasn't come out yet, but the 00Z run, again, the European model shows it generally strengthening quite a bit as it heads towards landfall in southeastern Louisiana. Again, New Orleans is on that eastern side of the storm, so that is definitely not a good sign at all. The Canadian model, it shows it heading towards landfall, starting to really intensify. It really shows it the weakest out of all three of the main models that we use, but shows very, very heavy rainfall rates as it makes landfall and potentially goes right over New Orleans. So the Canadian model by far shows it the farthest east of the GFS, Euro, and CMC, hitting southeast Louisiana. So the cone forecast, National Hurricane Center's cone forecast, may still shift a bit to the east and have New Orleans really in the crosshairs of the center of the storm. So we will have to pay really close attention to that as the storm starts to intensify more going through the afternoon, and see how the National Hurricane Center's cone forecast and their thinking responds to that. All right, now let's look at the HWRF model for Ida. Here we go. We move this forward in time as it starts to approach landfall, really intensifies and gets down into the 940s. So definitely a very strong Category 3, Category 4 hurricane on approach to landfall and at landfall in southeast Louisiana. Very, very heavy rainfall, strong push of storm surge and flooding into southeast Louisiana. So really, really bad sign, it looks like. HMON model for Ida. Move this forward in time. Shows it strengthening, and definitely shows it much weaker than the HWRF. The HMON shows it much weaker, but still shows it strengthening down still a bit into the 960s to around 960 millibars, making landfall in central to southeastern Louisiana. New Orleans, again, is on that eastern side. which is definitely not a good thing. Again, as I keep saying, strongest push of storm surge with the strongest winds obviously on the eastern side, so flooding, major flooding is a huge concern for those areas in southeastern Louisiana, including New Orleans. So this storm is not looking good. Now let's show you the ocean temperatures real quick, because this is definitely something I want to touch upon. The storm currently is right around here, just to the northeast of Cuba, to the northeast of Cuba, southeast of the western coast of Florida, and it will continue to track generally to the north and west through the very, very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Loop current, highest ocean heat content pretty much around here, and then as it continues to move towards the northwest and curves a bit more to the north as it makes landfall in southeastern Louisiana. Ocean temperatures 31 degrees Celsius. Very, very warm ocean temperatures, sea surface temperatures for the storm to continue to feed off of and strengthen up until landfall. So the potential of this storm intensifying all the way to landfall is definitely the most likely at this point. The potential of it weakening before landfall, not really that likely at all, because of the fact that it's in a perfect environment. No wind shear, no dry air. Very warm sea surface temperatures, loop current that it'll interact with, spells out potential extreme disaster for southeastern Louisiana, Mississippi, those areas. Very high chance of lots of flooding, wind damage, power outages. So this is a storm to definitely pay serious attention to. Now, let's look at the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season as a whole. And this season has started to become a bit more active as of late because of Ida. Now we have Tropical Depression 10, so we have now had 10 total depressions, 9 named storms, 4 hurricanes. Ida is now our fourth hurricane. We've had 1 hurricane that was Grace. Ida likely to become our second major hurricane, honestly, quite soon. Either between the time frame of it becoming a major hurricane is generally between, I would say, 5 and 11 p.m. later this afternoon through early tonight. Total fatality so far this season is at 60. Total damage is at $2.021 billion. So technically, if you take away the period there, $21 billion in damage. That's kind of interesting coincidence. So that's interesting there. Generally, the forecast for the rest of the hurricane season, very, very active. Looks like we could potentially get towards the end of the conventional naming list. Again, we've already gone through the I name, and 10 may become the J name, but we'll have to see. Doesn't look that likely to me, but the National Hurricane Center has that chance there for it to become the J name, which is Julian. ACE value so far this season is now at 33 units and will likely continue to go up as Ida continues to intensify, especially those intensifying hurricanes, major hurricanes, produce the most ACE. Now, of course, it depends on how fast Ida is moving. It is forecast to slow down as it approaches landfall, so the potential of it slowing down still over very warm waters, and the potential of it, again, because of that, still intensifying. ACE value for just that storm will likely go up a lot and really add to that total ACE for the season. Tropical Depression 10 may cause a little bit of ACE so maybe the ACE will go up a bit because of that storm as well. Again, J name is Julian, so Tropical Depression 10 possibly could become Julian, but I wouldn't say that's a likelihood, to be honest. So far, Ida has killed 20 people indirectly in Venezuela. Damage is unknown because of it impacting Venezuela as its precursor, as an invest, and then, of course, going over Cuba and the Isle of Youth. So Ida likely caused damage in those areas as well, and then, of course, will likely cause a lot of damage as well in the United States as it makes landfall in the southeastern, the Gulf Coast of the United States and Louisiana, Mississippi, the southeastern part of Louisiana and whatnot. So that is not a good sign. It's as I said, already impacted Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Greater Antilles, as well as Cuba, Isle of Youth. So, and then eventually now the Gulf Coast, and where it will bring very, very high amounts of storm surge, high amounts of flooding, and strong winds. Major hurricane at landfall, potentially a Category 4 hurricane at landfall. Depends on how fast this storm, though, really starts to intensify as it interacts with loop current and the very warm sea surface temperatures up to landfall. So again, Category 3, very, very likely. 100% chance of it becoming Category 3, I would say. Category 2, obviously, 100% chance of it becoming Category 2. Category 4 also looks quite likely. The potential of it becoming Category 5 definitely is on the table. definitely has a potential of getting to Category 5 status. Now, that, of course, really depends on just how much it interacts and how much it takes advantage of those deep ocean heat content in the loop current and warm sea surface temperatures after that up until landfall. We shall see what happens with that. But again, hurricane warnings, hurricane watches are up, tropical storm warnings and watches are up, as well as storm surge watches and warnings are up for southeast Louisiana, as well as Mississippi and Alabama. So, again, in particular, hurricane warnings are up for Louisiana. Hurricane watches up for Louisiana, and tropical storm warnings are up for Louisiana, as well as tropical storm watches for Alabama. Storm surge watches and warnings for Texas through Alabama, and particularly, and then storm surge warnings, and particularly for Louisiana and Mississippi. So again, storm surge, huge threat, 10 to 15 feet at max currently forecast for the southeastern Louisiana coast, around where the center could make landfall. So that is definitely something we're going to have to watch very closely. The potential of the storm surge forecast going up even a bit more is possible. So definitely do not let your guard down with this storm. This storm is a very real, dangerous, life-threatening threat. So again, this storm is something we're really going to have to pay attention to over the next day or two. And it will likely bring, actually, as well, flooding rainfall inland into parts of the deep south and into the Kentucky, Tennessee area, and even potentially could later into the mid to latter part of the work week could bring its remnant precipitation to the northeast New England. That is even in the forecast for parts of the northeast New England as well now. So that's quite interesting, how much of the United States it could impact with its, particularly its precipitation. So again, Ida, we will continue to watch this closely. It is likely to intensify throughout the rest of today, likely become a major hurricane by between 5 to 11 p.m. tonight, and then will continue to intensify throughout tonight and into tomorrow, all the way through landfall. That will likely be landfall currently forecast by the National Hurricane Center, likely will be around mid-afternoon tomorrow. So again, you have up until then to fully prepare. Hopefully you guys are already fully prepared, honestly, and hunkered down if you're not evacuating in the New Orleans area and southeastern Louisiana, Mississippi, those areas. But of course, evacuation definitely I would say very definitely want to evacuate. That is definitely something you really should do, because of how dangerous the storm is looking and how much storm surge and flooding it will likely bring, as well as wind damage. The wind damage of this could be pretty devastating as well. So again, the power outages could last weeks. According, as well, actually the power outages could last up to 3 weeks, according to sources in Louisiana. So again, if you think you need to evacuate, definitely evacuate, because you do need to evacuate, especially if you live in southeastern Louisiana, New Orleans, even coastal Mississippi, coastal Alabama as well. You guys should evacuate. Central Louisiana, even western Louisiana as well, potentially evacuate, because you still have that threat of some storm surge and rainfall flooding and whatnot, and even some stronger winds. Not, of course, not as strong, because you'll be on that western side where the much weaker winds are. But still, the winds will likely ramp up for you guys a little bit in the central southwestern part of the state of Louisiana. So, again, this storm is going to be affecting a lot of people, a lot of areas, a lot of major cities. So the threat of this storm is very high. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, though. I really hope you did. Really hope you found it informative, enjoyable. So again, if you did, please consider liking the video down below. Comment down below what you guys think Ida will do, especially intensity-wise, how bad of impacts it could bring to Louisiana, Mississippi, those areas. And again, let's have a nice lively discussion about that down below in the comment section. Get a respectful one. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do consider subscribing, because I will continue to bring up-to-date information on Ida as we continue into tomorrow, Monday. So definitely want to subscribe to my channel, especially if you like this kind of content as well. Please consider subscribing to my channel. And if if you do, again, if you do, please consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please stay safe, people living in southeastern Louisiana in general, Mississippi, those areas. Please stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.